favor? Roll call, please. Aye. No? Yes. And then that there.
Yes.
Yes. Do you vote yes to move into executive session?
Absolutely.
All right. We are now in executive session. We will reconvene at 7 p.m.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time we will have our first opportunity for public comments. The board welcomes questions, ideas, and comments from persons in attendance. Members of the audience may comment during the public comment portion of the meeting when recognized by the board president. We ask that comments be limited to 3 minutes in order to complete the agenda within a reasonable time. We also ask that comments begin by writing your name, address, and the school district in which you reside. Would anyone like to make a public comment at this time?
These things can people actually hear? Are these things on? Okay. Okay.
What do you need to do?
Would anybody like me to move back so you can't hear me?
All right. Celebrations from board members. Arnold, you want to start?
I went to the elementary, 6th grade, and middle school 50 Fine Arts concert last week, and it was very enjoyable. A lot of good creativity going on with the students.
I went to the Extended Choir concert last week. Awesome job by Karen Gaynor as always. I also went to the Steger Band concert. Awesome job by them as always as well. And also I went to a meeting Monday. There's going to be a new Spirit squad. They're trying to bring it back to the old compound squad. So they will march with the band and perform at halftime basketball games. Just something else new and local.
Yes, so I went to the opportunity to meet the principal at the high school, which was great. Thank you to him for coming out and spending the evening. I will let I was at the Acapella Extravaganza. I'll let Joe talk about that because my son was playing Starry Ball. Although I wasn't able to attend Webster on Wheels in person, I will talk about that. It was a great turnout. I will talk about that during my update on the foundation's activities.
Steve.
Was happy to attend the Senior Awards Night again this year. It's one of my favorite things to do annually. The classes, every time you think somebody's set the bar high, the next class seems to just blow it away somehow. We had 240 plus students out of the graduating class earned at least one scholarship. Over $31 million of scholarships earned by the class of 2018. Again, 2 Missouri scholars, and I'm sure there were more than 2 eligible, but you can only have 2 as a max. Again, for the probably 15th year in a row, at least, Missouri Citizen Award winner for Webster Rose, and there's only, I think, 15 in the entire state that's recognized, and I think we've had one every year for at least the last 15 or 16 years. That representative from our high school will be going to Jeff City for the Missouri Law Board. It recognizes that person, and then also attended the event for Dr. Clark at Llewellyn's. A little sparsely attended, but there were 2 sessions, and really happy to see the folks come out and wish Dr. Clark well as he proceeds to retirement.
Thank you, Steve.
So I was at the Statesman Sports Awards, which is hard to say, my time's fast, but the male athlete of the year went best male athlete of the year went to Brittany Brady, best female K.K. Rodriguez. And speaking of high achieving students, our best team GPA was girls women's cross country, and they had a 3.94 team GPA. And of the female swimmers,
went out to Karasiki for the Jim Shamo run, which was awesome. And every year it just gets better. It's organized, it's smooth, and it's great up beautiful day. Same thing for Day Back. Wow, it was Webster on the wheel. It's a perfect day. Well attended, well organized, all was smooth.
Thank you. Great, so celebrations from administrators. Who's that? Dr. Dembo.
Okay, we have a lot of celebrations tonight, but I'll start with our science fair participants. And it is so exciting to look out here and see all of our young scientists and all of the excitement that they brought. We have some examples of their science fair projects, and I really encourage you to take a look when you have a chance after the meeting. They put a lot of time and effort into these. This was a rigorous process. So they worked through this. Some of them did these projects on their own. Some of these projects were in a pair or in a group. They had to move past our district science fair, and these are the recipients of ribbons from the regional science fair. So we are excited to honor these science fair participants. I am going to call your name. I have certificates for everybody. And if you are so inclined, you just want to give maybe one sentence about what your experiment was about. If you don't want to, that's okay. But if you want to, you're more than welcome. So I'm going to take this out. And we have quite a few. So is Alice Lippold here? Alice. What was your experiment about?
It was what solution prevents apples from turning brown?
Very important. My apples always turn brown when I use them. So very good. Congratulations, Alice. Isaac Hilton. Is Isaac here? Lily Indrasco? Lily. Flowers die the most the quickest? Okay. Congratulations. Henry B. Holder. Henry? We have a pair here, Ella Jackson and Audrey Jackson. How about Rachel Muldrow? We have a threesome group here, Elsie Gordon, Sophia Wagner, Sophia O'Donnell. What can hold the cold? No. Addison Simpson is not here. Izzy Cuddy? Izzy. Tell us about your experiment.
Mine was on building a model.
Building a model? All right. Rock climbing wall? All right. Congratulations. Justin Seeley. Justin. What was your experiment about?
My experiment was about basically washing the dishes if you don't have a dishwasher to wash them.
He had the Scromatic 2000 over there, so I know we're all very interested in that. I apologize if I mispronounced this. Kate Freshour? Freshour. Kate, what was your experiment about?
Water pressure.
Water pressure, titled That's Deep, Water Pressure. Very good. How about Robert Trampier. Did I spell that? Did I pronounce that right? I did. What was your experiment about?
My experiment was about studying the choices of what people would do with a stray cat colony.
Okay, very exciting. Okay. December Greg. December Greg? How about Noah Broadbent? Last but not least, Gabe Wright. Gabe. Are you coming from or going to practice? Well, you're probably not anything right now. What was your experiment about?
My experiment was about the basketball angle of a shot, and it goes in, and what the perfect angle of the shot is.
Is the basketball team going to recruit you as one of their coaches? No? Congratulations. So again, we just wanted to honor and we're so thankful for all, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Emily Brindle, thank you. Caught up in my Jackson. Emily, congratulations, what was your experiment about?
How much baking powder muffins?
How much baking powder muffins need? What did you find out?
When she said choose
Okay, I can't bake, so you're going to have to give me some hints. Okay? Congratulations. All right, sorry about that. Again, thank you for all of your hard work, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I encourage everybody to take a quick look at the end of our meeting. And we are appreciative of all of the time and effort that you put into it. So we just want to honor your hard work. Thank you.
Yes, we have many more tonight, being the end of the school year. But before I do that, Dr. Simpson asked that I offer a celebration that the legislature has committed to full funding for education next year. Okay, first we have two students who received, and actually Mr. Lohr referred to this, we have two students who received the Missouri Scholars 100 Award, one of the most prestigious awards a high school senior can receive. They are Ethan Whitaker and Jack Snelling, and maybe they could come forward. And you may recognize them. Schools across Missouri are invited to nominate candidates for this honor, and it is truly wonderful that two of the 100, only 100, came from our high school. Selection is based on a formula that uses the GPA and ACT/SAT score, among other things. And this is sponsored by the Missouri Association of Secondary School Principals. Congratulations. And maybe you could have your parents stand up and we could applaud for them too. Also, we have Thomas Putnam, who is one of only 15 students in the state honored with the Outstanding Achievement in Citizenship Award, which is sponsored by the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Missouri Bar Association for exemplary community service, academic achievement, and extracurricular achievements in civics and government. Is Thomas here? Yes. And do you have some family here? Okay. Next, we have several students who took top honors at the recent Skills USA state competition. Skills USA is a national organization that helps students in career and technical ed excel as leaders in their industry. First, we have Christopher Moore. Chris can come forward. You may recognize him. Chris is one of our tech helpers at Pacific Place. He's been doing it since he was a freshman. Chris received received first place in internet networking and second in computer networking. He also received first place statewide in networking concepts at the Future Business Leaders of America 5-day Lambda competition. And I have something for Chris. Congratulations. Next we have Mikayla Shields Robinson, who received second place for a prepared speech. Is she here? No. Okay. And Avery Comment received third place in Teamworks. Congratulations, Avery. Nice job. And your family? I'm going to hand it down to John and Thomas for some more awards.
Thank you. So as you know, we partner with a special school district who provides a lot of opportunities and a lot of supports for our students. And a couple of weeks ago, they had their end of the year celebration. And as part of that celebration, they have an award that they give to students throughout St. Louis County called the Rosemary Zander Award. And I equate it to our Eagle Award that our high school gives out to our seniors. So it's a very prestigious award, and it goes to a select few students. And every few years, we have a student who is recognized. And this year, of the 21 students throughout the county who were recognized, we had 2 students who received the Rosemary Zander Award. One of them is Katie Barnes, who was a 6th grader at Steger, and I don't believe she is with us tonight. If we could applaud for her. And the other is a senior, Kalea Kilmade, who was at our high school. I don't believe she is here either, but if we could applaud for her. And then I believe for our final award tonight, Dr. Fields is here to recognize them.
Good evening, members of the board, community, as well as colleagues. I stand before you as the proud principal at Steger 6th Grade Center. This is my first year, and I preface this award with that because one of the first acts of business I had was to help replace a legend. He told me to say that Mr. Don Nobby, he had retired, and we were bringing in a science teacher. With that being the case, we went back to our mission and our vision for our school district as well as our school. And we wanted to create a process in which we could make sure we can get closer to that mission and that vision. When I think about academic and personal success for all students, as well as using our passion, in innovative ways, certain candidates began to emerge to the front. We finally ended up privileged enough to have Ms. Chantel Mason, and since day one, she's done a spectacular job. I'm actually still trying to determine in a 30-minute final interview lesson, how could she incorporate new generation science standards, student engagement, technology, and still have a formative assessment embedded. I'm still trying to determine it at this particular time. With that being the case, when we were notified that she received the PBS All-Star Innovative Award, we were excited for her. Chantel does a great job for her students, but she's also an advocate for working together collaboratively. She's working with all of our staff members as well as her science department, and for many of us, technology could be very scary, but she is being very patient with us, and she's continued to model what excellence means both for the Webster School District as well as for Steger. So without further ado, I would like to recognize Ms. Chantel Mason as the recipient of the PBS All-Star Digital Innovative Award. And if you would like to share a few words about how you received this award, I appreciate it.
Few words about what? So the award is, there's 30 of us in the country that are going to be coming together in Chicago at the end of June, and we're going to be putting together different pieces of curriculum. So the curriculum I'll be doing is for pre-K to 5th grade for social emotional learning, and we'll be incorporating national standards, state standards, but also different PBS elements that they have resources available, and we'll be able to bring that back to all of our communities, and then the following year So the following school year, we'll be providing trainings for different communities. So the collective here is working with Normandy school districts, and through the Ready to Learn grant, which is a federal grant that PBS has become a part of, I'm working with them to deliver that curriculum, and it incorporates engineering and design and technology, along with social and emotional learning. So I'm very excited and honored to be able to provide that and be able to bring it back to St. Louis.
Wow, we have a lot to celebrate in Webster this evening. Thank you all for coming out. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. However, if you want to take an opportunity to dodge the thunderstorms, you are welcome to do so, and we won't mind. Thanks for coming. Okay, next up we have the board calendar. Board members, the 16th staff recognition reception and of course Friday graduation are the big two that are coming up. Also on here, I see we've got the Leadership Summit in June. Sherry, have you registered whoever planning to attend, or do we need to give you that information? Okay. So this is a conference at the lake, June 1 through 5. It's similar, it's a smaller version of what we do in the fall. So if you're interested in attending that, please let Sherry know, and she'll make arrangements and get hotel rooms enrolled.
I noticed this is part of our assignments as far as the board assignments for the next school year, but I noticed that I'm the lead delegate for the MSBA, and if they have any activities at that event, I will not be there because I have a commitment at Art and Air and also a family reunion that weekend. So if someone is going to go, they are certainly welcome to take the spot at the MSBA delegate session if they have one.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I don't think they typically.
I can't remember.
I don't think they. I've been down.
I don't anticipate them having one, but you never know.
Yeah.
If they call one, then we would want whoever attends to sit in my chair.
Okay, David, foundation update.
Yeah. So I just wanted to take a second. The foundation, we had our end of year meeting. Just really wanted to bring to the board's attention just sort of highlights. So that the foundation hosted 4 events this year: the Run for Webster, the Sip and Savor, which was a new event, very much designed to be a fundraiser, the Mardi Gras at Cyrano's, and most recently Webster on Wheels. These events overall, they raised $77,000, and the total revenue for the year was $89,000. The foundation had 32 submitted grant applications this year, and they awarded grants to 24 of those for a total of $41,000. Some differences in terms of the way the foundations approach things this year, but really to try to perhaps have less events, but to make sure that they're all very meaningful for one reason or another. So in some cases, the objective is as much community involvement and things like that. For others, it's clearly just to raise funds. And also the foundation has improved, I think, the grant process as well, so that now teachers are asked to submit some preliminary application, which is intended to be very much shorter than the regular application, and from that they can then get initial feedback as to if that looks like it's a grant that's going to have a good chance of success. So really trying to make sure that we honour the time. It does take time to write a grant and honour the time to do that. And so we've seen implemented that, and then that's going to be the foundation is working then to improve on that for the coming year to see if there are ways that we can still further improve that process. I just want to say just a quick word about Webster on Wheels that have just gone. Wanted to thank, there were about 250 participants in that, and wanted to thank Mr. Buck and his committee, who together did sterling work to get that together, and again, a great success. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there. I was at graduation in Indiana for one of my daughters. She's off the payroll. but I'm sorry, but I did hear great things, and I think also just in addition to Dave Buck and to the committee, also just wanted to recognise all of the sponsors who make that possible as well. The hub takes obviously every year takes a huge role in that. A number of other sponsors as well. And I wanted to particularly also just to mention Becky Hauser for all of her hard work going and making sure that the sponsors are all recognised as well. So if anybody has any questions, happy to answer them. But really just to say the report back is a very successful year for the foundation, and looking forward to great success going forward.
All right, thank you. Harold, you had raised the issue about the pavers for Barbary Park. Do you want to share that information with the board?
Yes, if you haven't noticed, the Barbary Park renovations have started, and that's to help commemorate what's been going on in North Webster since the 1860s. And the city has gotten that renovation going along with a group that has put together a North Webster walking tour. And if you haven't done that, I really highly suggest that you do that. There's a lot of history in North Webster, but part of the park down there is going to have a sculpture by Preston Jackson. And around the sculpture, they're going to have bricks or pavers, and you can put your name on that, or you can, there's an 8x8 brick and a 4x8 brick. I thought one of the things that would be very honoring to the North Webster community and Douglas School would be to have a paver in thinking about, or not in memory, that's not the right words, but in honor of Douglas School. Douglas, then school became Douglas High School and Douglas Elementary School. So there were three Douglas schools, kind of one became one another. The other thing would be to honor two of the people who up there at the schools were very instrumental in educating the students up there. One is Henry Gibbons, and another one is Howell Goines, who was one of the first principals up there, a long-standing principal. So those are some ideas. However, they needed to be worked out on the pavers, but I think for a minimal cost and what the board could honor the students and the staff and the parents up there, I think that would be a nice thing to do.
So are you suggesting that the board as a group sponsor the pavers?
I think that would be great. I'm not trying to spend other people's money.
No, I think it's a good idea too.
I think it would be very a very welcome thing.
I would be in favor of that as well.
And just so we understand, how much are the pavers?
The pavers are an 8x8 engraved brick is $180. A 4x8 engraved brick is $100.
Arnold, were you suggesting a brick for each of the three generations of the school, or one brick like an 8x8 recognizing all three?
However it would look nice, that would be a nice way to do it if they each had a separate one, but that's also an added expense. So I want to make sure that we get it accurate, whether it's Douglas High School and Douglas Elementary or Douglas School, because it's going to be there for a long time. And then maybe the honoring the principal. So we could do two.
Could I propose that maybe we see what can fit on the 8x8 for the schools, and then maybe individuals for the...
I've already tried that, so I'll send those to you all individually.
That would be great. Thank you.
May I also suggest that we maybe get in touch with the Northwestern Coalition, have we talked to them already to see if they may already have something going on, or if they have something in particular that...
Great.
All right, thank you for that idea. Reports from superintendent staff and staff. Dr. Wiley.
Hello, everyone. In your Word documents, you should have received actually 3 calendars, the 18-19 calendar that we board approved in January 17, and then an updated 18-19, and then our first draft we're presenting to you for 19-20. What I wanted to point out is that the calendar committee, of course, met this year. We meet every year. The board member that's part of that committee is Joe Dahl, and we met, and due to some recommendations made by some of the staff members, we determined to make some adjustments to the 18-19 calendar, the one that was already board approved. So the major adjustments that you guys probably noticed is that we have added preschool to the calendar to show that they are part of our district in their first day, their end day, in addition to their family chats and their conferences. In addition, in the month of August, we added Jumpstart conferences, which have been taking place in the district, and we formally added it to the calendar for 18-19. Conference dates we made an adjustment to, as well as modifying Hickson's half day from May into the month of March. We will also plan to add a member from Walter Ambrose Family Center to the calendar committee for the upcoming year, since their dates will be scheduled and be a part of the calendar. So our hope is that you guys would be okay with approving the 18-19 calendar with the revisions that the committee suggested. In addition, we would ask that you would approve the 19-20 calendar. From our perspective, we believe we've taken a look at it and ensured that everything is clear on here. Again, you'll see preschool on here, Jumpstart conferences, so it'll look very similar to what 18-19 looks. I did get an email from Christine with regard to bolding the first day of school. We'll do that, and then also make sure we send out information to the community that we've made an adjustment, or we made adjustments to the 18-19 calendar, because it's been on our website since January of 2017. So we'll make sure we push that communication out. Are there any questions about either 18-19 or 19-20?
Right, do we need a motion to approve? The motion to approve the revised school calendar for 2018-2019?
Yes, the revised calendar for 18-19. Can we do that at the same
Just do
time?
it separate. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And we need a motion to approve the draft school calendar for 19-20.
So moved.
Second.
Right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. And thank you to the calendar committee. Dr. Dembo.
Set up camp there. You'll be there a while.
It's the curriculum instruction show. Good evening. So the first of the reports for this evening will be just a brief review and discussion around the federal title programs and reporting on what we're planning on doing for the next school year, and also approving our proposal. So first, looking at our Title I, which is the money that goes towards the academic achievement of what they call the disadvantage. And so you can see that for the last several years, the amount that we've been allocated from the federal government has continued to decrease. Over the last 3 years, there's been about an $80,000 reduction in our Title I funding for both Webster Groves and our non-public institutions, which for Title I is Epworth and Great Circle. So one thing for this whole report to consider is these allocations only were delivered to us last Monday. Historically, we've received this actually in September of the year prior, and so we are about 9 months late in receiving this money. These are preliminary projections, and at this point, the application to the grant is not open for us to go in and do any calculations. So we cannot calculate how much we will be receiving and the non-public institutions will be receiving until that grant is open. So this is very, very preliminary information. What we are anticipating for next school year is that our title funding will go to support Avery Computer School and Hudson. I said possibly Steger. Historically, Steger has been one of the 4 schools that have received funding. We received notice this year that most likely Steger would fall off based on the number of students identified. Again, that can always change, so all of these numbers can change depending on what the actual free and reduced lunch counts come in at. and what the federal government, how that is disseminated out. So once that is finalized, I can provide that update maybe in the fall. Moving forward to Title II. Title II centers around professional development. Again, you can see that Title II has received a big decrease over the last 3 years. Something that is listed in the addendum that I have listed on the board agenda. In 2010, the school district was receiving around $40 per student for professional development. This year, we're receiving about $10 per student. So in the course of 7 or 8 years, we've received about a 75% decrease in our Title II allocations. Again, these are preliminary allocations, and so this money will still need to be split between the Webster School District and our non-public schools.
So is this decline, is this as a result of cuts in state funding then?
Federal funding.
Oh, federal funding, okay.
Federal funding. So again, once we know that, I can give you an update at a later date. If you look at last year's allocation and this year's, there's not that much of a difference. It's a decline of about $2,500. If you went by last year's allocations, our portion would be around $44,000 out of that about $62,000. So this year I've been very, very conservative with spending our Title II funds because I anticipated, based on some things that we were hearing, that we would be getting cut again. So because I was conservative, I can roll that money over into next year's funds. So we'll be able to have a little bit more to use for our professional development with our teachers. Some of the things that we have brought in the past or will be doing this summer or next school year, you can see listed above a couple of the things that are really important at the moment based on our academic achievement. I want to highlight the 6th and 7th grade Fox Literacy Institute that we're sending a cadre of teachers to this summer. The Adding It Up Math Institute, again sponsored by Fox, but Susan Bergman, our math coordinator, has been instrumental in helping plan. We also have a teacher leader group going to a math institute this summer, the Kara M. Math in the City Institute, and with the hopes that those teachers will come back and be teacher leaders within our buildings to help promote and build up our knowledge about math and best practices around math instruction. New this year was Title IV. The official title is Student Support and Academic Enrichment. This could be used in a variety of ways. As you can see, well-rounded educational opportunities, activities to promote safe and healthy students, or instruction around the effective use of technology. This year, again, between Webster and our non-publics, we were allocated about $10,000. Webster's portion of that was around $7,000. And so one of the options we had was we could roll that into Title II because we had received such a cut. That's what we did this year, was roll that into our Title II funding. For next year, we have an increase, which was a nice surprise compared to everything else being cut. So again, we don't know what our allocation will be for Webster, but what I'm looking at this year is something that falls under both well-rounded educational opportunities and the effective use of technology, is a web-based coding and IT instructional system that can be utilized at both our high school and our middle school. I've spoken with the leaders of both of the schools, as well as Mark Young, the teacher who does most of, or all of the coding and computer science classes at the high school. This system would allow for a consistent curriculum from middle school through high school, so that information around coding and IT wouldn't be piecemealed, with the hope and the vision of building that out from a K-12 standpoint at some point in the future. My feeling is that our allocation would probably be able to cover most, if not all, of that process. We receive a lot of input from a variety of different people when it comes to how is our professional development, how is it going, what are our needs in the district. So you can see we talk with our admin team, our curriculum coordinators, our CCC, IDEA played a big part in setting our goals for next year. The principals talked with their building PTOs, and we had feedback from our new teacher induction program just last week. We asked for their feedback on their first year here and how did they perceive our professional development program and what needs do they need in the future. Any questions? So for this, I just ask that the board approves the proposed title program for the 2018-19 school year.
Somebody make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Why are we so shy tonight? Somebody second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thanks. Okay.
Report 2, this is more for informational. I wanted to present to the board the changes that we were made aware of a little over a month ago from DESE on how our district APR report is going to be calculated moving forward. In the past, we have, well, let me back up. Webster Groves, as well as all the other school districts in the state, have been what's called hold harmless for the last 4 years. And hold harmless is a designation that is given whenever new standards are rolled out, a new assessment is rolled out, for the sake of, because things are new and the APR and student achievement has such a high stake when it comes to accreditation, they didn't want school districts to be penalized because of new standards and new assessments, at least for a year, to give them a chance to get acclimated to those standards and those assessments. Because of the old Missouri Learning Standards changing to Common Core, and then Common Core changing to the new Missouri Learning Standards, the new assessments that went with all of those, and then last year there was the problem with the Algebra 1 and the English 2 EOC, districts have been hold harmless for 4 years.
Chris, just to clarify, this is a different kind of hold harmless than what Bruce on the budgeting side deals with, for anybody listening on
Correct.
To the meetings.
Absolutely nothing to do with financial hold harmless.
Thank
This is
you.
academic hold harmless.
Appreciate it, thank you.
So because of that, the way DESE reports annual results of school districts might not necessarily reflect how the school district is actually performing, because they will, when you're hold harmless, your achievement score can't go down, it can only improve. So that's been the case for all 500 plus school districts in the state. So at the end of March, with clarification just about 2 weeks ago from DESE, we received the following information that's going to have some impact on how our APR is looked at moving forward. So coming this fall, when our APR comes out, the DESE is going to consider our 2017, what was reported as our APR. That's going to be our baseline, and that APR is a hold harmless. So that was the highest score that we have received in the last 4 years. So that will be our baseline. From that, whatever our achievement is, if it is equal or higher to that baseline, we will exit out of hold harmless. If we are lower than that baseline, they're going to use that modified calculation where they use the 2017 hold harmless points and multiply that by 2/3, then what we actually, plus what we actually achieve in 2018, this current testing cycle that we just ended, times 1/3, add those together, and that will be our APR achievement score moving forward, and that will be used as the baseline for 2019. Okay. Then moving ahead for 2019, in the fall of 2019, if the 2019s are greater than that 2018 adjusted APR, we will exit out of hold harmless permanently and use that as our baseline moving forward. If we are less than that 2018 adjusted APR, you'll see that the ratio switches, so the 2018 adjusted points will only be 1/3, and the actual achievement for 2019 will be 2/3. It was the state's way of kind of easing our way out of hold harmless, rather than just cutting it off cold without any transition period. Regardless of how this plays out over the next 2 years, all districts will move out of hold harmless designation in 2020, regardless of their achievement. The one thing to keep in mind is that this calculation will be conducted for each subject, each standard for each year. Meaning, standard 1 talks about math and ELA total achievement. So we have those two calculations. Standard 2 is math and ELA super subgroup achievement. So we have those two designations. So in essence, and all 4 of those groups will be calculated individually. So conceivably, we could move out of hold harmless in one and still be in hold harmless in another, or any combination thereof. So it's going to be a little bit complicated moving forward in the next couple of years. Some other things to keep in mind this year: 5th grade, 8th grade grade levels took the math science test as well as the biology EOC that were given. This year, all of those questions were field tested. We will not receive any information. We won't receive any data. Students won't receive reports. Parents won't receive reports. And so our APR total points is normally out of 140. Because that information is not being given to us, our denominator will reduce to 120 points for this coming fall. Starting in the spring, this time next year, 2019, all science assessments will once again become operational. So we'll receive all of this information. But then we'll be transitioning to the new social studies, American government EOC. And so in 2019, this time next year, that will be a field tested assessment. We won't receive any information on that. And our APR denominator will only be 130 points instead of 140. With 2020 going back to a full 140 points. Some other things to keep in mind for state MSIP APR accountability. Race, ethnicity, special education, free reduced lunch will continue to be reported together as a super subgroup for state accountability. But then when you get to federal accountability and the stipulations under ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, they're going to look at it a little bit differently. What will happen here is that any time there is a group within any of those groups of race, ethnicity, special education, free reduced lunch, whenever there's a group of 30 or more within a school, those will be reported out individually. And for schools that are receiving Title I funds, what the state and federal government will do is rank achievement from best to lowest across the state. The schools that are in the bottom 5% will be considered comprehensive support and intervention, targeted for comprehensive support and intervention. Then the second component to that is that the state and federal government will then take all schools, regardless if they receive Title I funds or not, rank their achievement by those disaggregated subgroups. And if there is achievement that is aligned with those struggling groups, those schools will be considered for targeted assistance. So you could have a school that doesn't receive any Title I funds, but conceivably still receives targeted assistance based on their subgroup achievement. So that's from the federal government. A couple of other things that will be changing. DESE is moving towards direct certification as our poverty indicator. In the past, when I have reported on student achievement and free and reduced lunch was one of the indications of poverty that we've utilized. We utilized those students who received direct certification and students whose families filled out an application to receive free and reduced lunch. Now, and so currently, for instance, we have 649 students who receive free and reduced lunch. 404 of those students are directly certified. So moving forward, DESE will only look at the achievement of the students who are direct certified, not students who place an application in to receive free and reduced lunch. That's what they're going to have as a poverty indicator. Because of this, that subgroup is going to shrink, and you can see that in our numbers. And the state is predicting that achievement could possibly decline because of that. Another change will be student attendance rates will be recalculated. In the past, we've received, it's kind of an all or nothing. We receive a full weight score of 1 for all students who are at school 90% of the time. That what they're changing is giving a little bit more of an opportunity to earn some points if you have those lower attendance rates, but they just receive a lower amount of the points. We always receive all of our points, so it's not necessarily going to impact us because we have, again, historically received our points, but should something change in the future, that will be a benefit to all districts. And there's a couple of other minor changes that really won't impact our overall APR report around graduation and students who primarily receive their instruction in a special ed classroom setting, but the numbers are so low it's not going to really impact our APR. So again, the impact on Webster grows. Looking and talking with the staff and the students, the perceptions of the staff and the students, this year's assessment was much more rigorous than it has been in the past. A lot of comments about how hard it was. For example, the math test was primarily reading, not necessarily math. There were very few, if any, just straight algorithmic calculation math problems. They were all reading problems, word problems from what we used to describe it when I was in school with multiple step indicators of how to solve it, and lots of feedback on how hard both the reading and the math. So just anticipating, because of the difficulty of the tests and the change in how things are calculated, the possibility of our APR going down slightly next year because of a multitude of ways things are calculated. Any questions?
I have more of a comment. Now that everybody's eyes are rolling in the back of their head, thank you very much for that information. There's a lot of data to get out, and having done that stuff for a long time, I'm really disappointed in the state in changing a lot of these things, and I know why they're changing them. From my personal opinion, they're changing them to move students from one subgroup to make that subgroup look better, to move to a larger group, which they'll be absorbed in that group. A lot of these changes, and none of this is very easy to try to determine and calculate achievement or how you are performing and how well you are performing in relationship to your peers, the rest of the state and the country. It's very difficult to do that. It's more difficult to do that without leadership at the state level, in DESE, and within the state legislature, and within the federal government, period. You know, I'm not getting political here, but we have legislators who are legislating education and how to do everybody's job here, and it's very difficult. The other thing, I guess I just get off my chest, the idea, and I mentioned this last year, that the state's okay with 10%
of the students missing 17 days out of the year being a really good attendance record is ludicrous. And then now we're going to reward even an 85% rate and an 87.5% rate. So what I'm saying basically to my colleagues here is this is not necessarily an improvement. It's an improvement to make things look better or look good in the long run. And the whole notion that we give assessments now and we're not getting any results, or we're changing assessments every year or every 2 years or every 3 years is just absolutely idiotic. And I can't say it any more vernacular than that.
I would concur with what Arnold says. It smells a lot like the lower the bar to meet the bar at the budgeting level as well. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's a PR thing in a lot of ways, and personally I think it's very negative, but that's not getting out. I mean, there's nobody reporting this sort of thing, and you know, just the fact that we don't have a functioning state board of education at this point in time is just completely to black eye on the state of Missouri, in my opinion. But I agree wholeheartedly with what Arnold said.
I can tell you that one thing that was, for me in my position, was disappointing was that this information was received about a week before the MAP window opened for the state. So there was no time to prepare. I'm thankful that we chose to, I know it was a lot of time, and there was a lot of complaints about doing the practice assessment, but at least our children had eyes on what the test looked like. Those districts who chose not to do it, and then received this information of how this was going to impact their APR, that I'm sure there was some concern on how that all played.
Quite a bit of surprise and deer in the headlight looks, probably.
There was a little surprise.
Yes.
Can you explain the application for free lunch versus the certification thing again?
And I might ask Bruce if I misstate this, but the way I understand it, direct certification is for those families who receive assistance with food stamps, and so they get directly certified to receive free and reduced lunch here, versus they might not receive that benefit at home, and they can fill out an application and apply to receive free and reduced lunch based on their income. Did I say that correctly? Yeah. So that's the difference.
So the people who are not certified can still apply, but they just won't be counted?
Correct. Yes, it won't change anything as far as how many students receive free and reduced lunch. What we currently do will continue. It's just from an accountability standpoint, they will only be looking at the achievement of the students who are receive free and reduced lunch through direct certification.
And those are exactly the students that that Arnold was referring to, that are going to be absorbed into a larger number and basically disappear into the numbers.
That's why I was asking. I was
Right.
sure that.
All right, thank you.
So number 3 is I just wanted to talk about the dyslexia report and bring this forward, not for any motion, but just for information. 2 years ago, the legislature passed a law mandating that school districts needed to provide screening for all students K through 3 for signs of reading struggles around the areas of dyslexia. And school districts needed to have a process in place to help remediate some of those concerns. DESE didn't send out their recommendations to school districts on what their interpretation of the law until January 1st, 2018. So we've had since January 1st to now to really have our process in place and get everything aligned for implementation for next school year. We didn't want to move ahead and anticipate what they were going to say, not knowing. So I cannot say enough wonderful words about Julie Parr, our ELA coordinator, because she has done a remarkable job this semester and has, I don't know when she has slept, quite frankly. So many, many kudos to her. She has spent countless hours in workshops, going to meetings. We've attended a consortium of our kind of southern regional school districts so that we're all sharing information. Again, trying to work smarter, not harder. What can we do collaboratively? So there's been those talks. And so just want to list a couple of things that have occurred. What this process has also allowed us to do is really vet our core ELA instruction, especially at the elementary level, to see where we could possibly strengthen our core instruction for our students. So what has happened this semester is we've developed a process to be used for screening and remediation for our students. Actually developed the screening assessments, which you can see in the handbook, to be used in grades K through 3 and the process for screening in grades 4 and up. We have sent at least one reading teacher in all schools K through 8, at least one for Orton Gillingham training, which is a week-long training specializing in ways to remediate for dyslexia. All teachers who had not previously been trained in the units of writing, we provided in-service training this semester. So now all of our teachers K through 5 have gone through the training to implement the writing workshop component, the writing workshop model of instruction in their classrooms. We vetted and purchased resources for teachers to use to teach phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics. We've also trained all of our teachers. So again, we've had full day and half day trainings for all grades K through 5 on those phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, and phonics resources, as well as the screening assessments that they will be using starting in the fall. Julie had developed the dyslexia handbook, which was an attachment, and you can see all 50-some pages she developed. And in addition, all of our staff K through 12 at the beginning of next school year will receive professional development around dyslexia, as well as participate in a simulation about what dyslexia looks like as someone who has dyslexia. So they'll go through that simulation process. So that's the plan for the fall.
Chris, quick question. Well, we don't have a significant or marked amount of transiency in our district. We do experience some kids moving in, moving out. How is this data gathered for those coming into the district so we assess them properly to handle them as soon as they arrive, whether they come from moving from out of town or out of state or from going to a private school to a public school, and vice versa? How will we transfer data along with the student should they leave us for any reason?
This is information that has to be captured in core data, so this isn't something that we will just keep ourselves. So these screening, the results of these screeners will have to be entered into our SIS system. So under a student's MOSIS ID number, it would transfer with them if they move to another district within the state. Okay. And vice versa, if they move into us, we should be receiving that information from them. And so, just like anything else, I would anticipate that information being transferred if a student moves out, just like we send the math data and things like that.
Part of their data package.
It's kind of part of their transfer.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. One more.
Last but not least, last summer I shared with you that we started a partnership, the school district started a partnership with the Children's Defense Fund Freedom School that they started last school year. Last year they serviced students K through 2. This year the Freedom School here in Webster Groves opened it up and it will be servicing students K through 5. And there's slots for 50 students. In talking with the Deaconess Foundation and the Children's Defense Fund, we felt it would be beneficial for us to formalize our partnership. And in doing so, we could also make an application to DESE for it to count as a formal component of summer school. So under DESE's guidelines, under the Partnering with Community Summer Programs provision, we can capture, as long as there is a Missouri certified teacher overseeing that classroom, we can capture those hours for ADA funding during the summer, just like our regular summer school. In turn, we can use that money pass through to help support the CDF and Deacon's Foundation, which is nonprofit. This Freedom Schools is nonprofit, and we can help support them by providing some of the resources that they need, the books, some of the activities that they participate in, field trips such as that. There is the possibility, depending on how many teachers will be a part, certified teachers will be a part of that, there is a possibility that we could potentially capture more ADA than will be needed to support. So it's a win-win all the way around, and the best winners of all are the kids who are participating. We have 50 slots, we have 50 students attending this year. So it quickly drew a very positive word of mouth around the community, and the kids, there's a lot of kids who attended last year who immediately signed up for this year because they wanted to go back. So I just, unless there's questions, I just ask that the board approve the memorandum of understanding between Webster Groves and the Deacon's Foundation.
A couple questions. Materials will be able to be viewed by staff or people to take a look at. And as I mentioned, I don't have a problem having kids get other opportunities. I think it's great, especially if they're successful. Makes me wonder how much more do we need to offer in our summer program, maybe offer another elementary program, and maybe offer a longer program. That's something I think we need to investigate. Because if there's a need in the community and it's being provided by an outside source, it makes me wonder, is that something that we could do, especially if we have an ADA? So, just a thought.
Okay. Somebody like to make a motion to approve the MOU?
I move to approve the Freedom School MOU. Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Duncan. We'll now have our second opportunity for public comments. Mr. Bell.
As you know, I have been at times critical of the district or the school board. I think rightly so, but not tonight. And Dave, thank you for your words, and back at you for all your help on the foundation. I want to talk about the subject of success. Success is a big word in this district. It's maybe the biggest word in your mission statement: academic and personal success. It's not academic and personal learning or achievement. It's success. I think it's success for a reason. But if I went along around the table and asked each of you, how do you define academic and personal success? I may get 7 different answers. I may not. I don't know, but it'd be an interesting exercise. But here's my perspective. As a district parent, I have always defined and limited the definition of success to the 13 years of K through 12. Or more specifically, later on in high school, from 9 to 12, those 4 years. That definition of success. My twins were in the same classes as Joe's Lucas Dahl, the class of 2017. They were a stellar class. Each in their own right. They were tremendously successful. And I think they set the bar for what the graduating class is all about. Very, very successful. But what's interesting is that these kids have now gone away to college, and now they're coming back after 1 year. And Joe, I haven't seen Lucas yet, but I've seen a number of our kids' friends who were in that graduating class who have gone to different colleges and have come back. And I got to tell you, as a party of one, their faces are alive. They are happy, they are confident, they
kicked ass in their classes for the most part. They got involved in school socially and recreationally and in different activist movements and causes. But they come back and these kids are like on fire. And I think this is what you guys do. You guys are a prep school. You prepare kids for a higher level of learning, for a new challenge, for a new place where they can find their voice, find themselves, and be successful. That prep all comes here. You guys are a stop on the journey. That's all you are. You're not a destination. You're a stop on a bigger journey. And all I'm saying is that my own feeling about how you guys define success does not happen K through 12. Real success happens post K through 12 when they get out on their own, away from home, away from the district, and find themselves. So that's all I wanted to say.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion that we approve consent agenda items 9.02, 9.03, 9.04, 9.05, 9.06, 9.07, 9.08, and finally 9.09.
We will keep 9.01, 9.7.
There were two versions, there were two pieces to it.
You do 909 separately.
So we need to do 909 separately because that deals.
Okay,
so
then I would revise my motion to exclude 9.09 and we'll vote on it separately.
Okay, so as amended. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed?
Then I would further move that we approve consent agenda item 9.09.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining?
I would make the motion that we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, thank you all.